Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
And I'm Mono Whiteboarder, also known as Peter.
We're following up on the design challenge from last month, where we had people design half of a partner with like commander pair. And our plan all along, kind of when we were scheming about this challenge, was to then have an episode where we did some live design, where we took the existing card submitted by someone in our community, and then on the air, we think through what it might take to make the other half of that card.
Yeah, we used you for content.
This is probably not how you'd actually design a partner pair. Like, you probably want to design them together with the same mentality or whatever, and not guess what the intention of the original design was. But that hopefully brings even a little bit more excitement and stuff like that to it. We've each picked one, and we're going to try to design the other half of that. All right, what's our first card that we're going to partner up? We're gonna Cupid match for.
Well, I picked Sket, Priest of Scales. It's a legendary Planeswalker Sket. 2 black-red for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. It has the passive Ferocious. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of Sket, Priest of Scales, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. It has the +1, add black-red to your mana pool, and -3, return target dragon, lizard, snake, or Viashino card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste until end of turn. And this card partners with Espis, God of Tongues. Red Bay was the designer of this card, and he did not go easy with us on name pronunciations.
Mm-hmm. Also, I'm noticing now RIP, because Viashino has been deprecated as a card type. All the Viashino are snakes or lizards now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
We had a creature type update. Yeah, probably for Bloomburrow.
That makes sense.
All right, so we have plus go up 2 mana. Play your 4 mana commander here, and then get 2 mana back to then lay down a mana rock or cast a removal spell or destroy an artifact or something like that. We got a -3, which is a little spicier, where we're going to return a dragon, lizard, snake from our graveyard to the battlefield, give it haste until end of turn. And then if we can maintain a board or like maybe do some other deck building, we've got this Ferocious trigger, War of the Spark style Planeswalker trigger here. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, copy that ability. You choose new targets for the copy. If I do have a 4/1 or a 4/10 on the battlefield, when I do the plus, I get black, red instead of just 2 mana. When I do the minus, I get 2 creatures out of my graveyard instead of just 1.
I guess the first question to ask when you're thinking about designing the partner is, do we think that the partner should be another Planeswalker or a creature to go with the Planeswalker? I don't think have we had Planeswalker partner commanders yet? Is that a thing?
There is one, this Will and Rowan.
Okay.
The Kenrith twins.
Right.
Yeah.
But we haven't had a Planeswalker partnered with a creature and vice versa.
Not that I can think of.
Yeah.
We've got here like Asipis, God of Tongues, which I think also gods, we want to be able to put creature type god, legendary creature god on the card.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably pushes me more strongly towards making sure this is a creature and not a Planeswalker.
Yeah.
But it could be something funky if we really wanted to. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. One of the benefits of if we make this pair with a creature is you can set up the creature to have power 4 or greater if it's a god.
Yeah.
Probably will. And then you have a very natural, play my commander and then play this and I trigger my Ferocious. The setup is very clear.
Yeah. Do we want Asipis to have the option of coming down ahead of Zaket? Do we think that Asipis should have a 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana option so that you can Asipis into Zaket and immediately the first time you activate it, you get a trigger? Or are we thinking more that like Zaket is going to be our herald? He's going to be the one that sets up the board in our favor. Is around for a couple turns, stalking our graveyard, getting things going. And the Asipis is like a huge hammer that comes down at 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 mana.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my read on this would be I wouldn't want Asipus to be 3 mana. And having them both 4 mana is kind of like intrinsically weird. So that makes me want to push Asipus up to 5 or 6 mana.
Yeah.
For some reason, I picture Asipus having blue and maybe being mono blue, so you have a Grixis pair here.
Oh, wow! A little bit of a twist on the serpent there. Yeah,
yeah.
We have some blue vipers and stuff like that. Yeah.
I was just thinking, do we have blue sea snakes? Is that a thing?
If we're trying to let people stock the deck with dragons, lizards, and snakes, a decent chunk of those are going to be green.
Yeah.
You don't need that many for it to be, good enough. But
I think one of the things about making it blue-green is you offer people the opportunity to build into the snake side that you might deny them if you just go straight Grixis, being that a lot of snakes are green. And so then you have to ask the question of like, how much do you want to give people access to the snake half of this, the snake third of this card?
Yeah. I guess there'll be more red snakes in Bloomburrow and stuff like that. So the red snakes will get redeemed a little bit.
You're going to obviously plant some unique non-green snakes into the deck if you make it just Grixis color.
Yeah. I guess,
well, he's just the god of tongues.
A god of tongues. Okay. All right. Which is pretty blue.
Yeah. I assume that's tongues languagey, not tongues as in like dragons, lizards, and snakes all have weird tongues.
Yeah. I mean, snakes do have weird tongues. But, yeah. I guess you get some blue, like Ophidian was like a classic snake. An early creature that could hit and draw cards. There are a bunch of smaller snakes like Little Naga from...
So yeah, maybe let's try and make this a mono blue creature, legendary creature god. So this is not Amonkhet. So Red Bay is one of the people that didn't give us a description with their card.
Yeah. I could kind of see Amonkhet, their whole pantheon shaken up. Maybe there's other corners to the plane that haven't been unearthed.
Mm-hmm.
Zaked is kind of generic evil wizard looking to me. I mean, except for having a snake head. So you could put that in a lot of places and I'd be pretty happy with it. Yeah,
he gives me a Jafar vibe. I don't know it's because I watched Aladdin recently.
Well, I haven't watched Aladdin recently. And I also would have described Zaked as Jafar-like.
Yeah, maybe we're back on Rabaya, we're revisiting Arabian Nights.
There you go. All right, so let's kind of figure out what some seeds might be for God of Tongues. It sounds like we're both interested in this being sort of like a double meaning. It's got a snake tongue, but also language magic, that kind of stuff. Speaking.
The first place my head goes is something with hand size or drawing, but that feels more like knowledge or understanding. Tongues is a little bit more specific than that. Could deal with casting spells specifically, whenever you cast a spell. Whenever you cast a spell with 3 or more words in the name.
I sort of got a vibe from what you're saying there of the middle Kozilek. Kozilek the Great Distortion from Oath of the Gatewatch. Where when you cast it, you draw a bunch of cards, and then you can discard a card with mana value X to counter target spell with mana value X. And in that case, it's sort of like Kozilek has kind of taken over your job. It's sort of Kozilek playing the game for you now instead of you playing your game anymore.
That does feel like an expression of like tongues and language of like, you cast a 5 mana card, I have a 5 mana card, I kind of know what you're doing, I can manipulate that because I'm powerful.
If it's like a menu of options, hey, you can discard a card to do one of 3 things or something like that. That might play into Zaked because it allows me to bin some big dragons. I don't know. Discarding cards to get effects is always really spiky, but I don't know. Maybe it's appropriate.
Well, if we want to make it less spiky, you could have the discard attached to something. You could have it attached to an attack trigger. You could have it attached to mana cost, enters the battlefield, triggers, things of that nature.
What are some famous snakes?
We could do something if we wanted to get a little Kozilek-y. You could say something to the effect of whenever you draw a card, reveal it, then reveal. Well, let me rephrase this. Whenever you draw the first card, this is already getting too wordy.
Sure.
Now I'm thinking of all the conditions, but
get it out of your brain and then we'll see if there's a twist.
Yeah. Let's say if you would draw a card, you could reveal a card from your hand with the same converted mana cost, and then you get some sort of bonus effect. So you kind of have that like idea of language, mana cost, matching things, being able to express things using your hand, and then we also have that snake vibe of drawing cards as meaningful and relevant, and we want to be doing it.
Yeah, matching mana value is maybe the black border version of like what an unset might do, which is like picking a word and then that word matters.
Yeah.
Maybe then part of what we're doing is like you could enter the battlefield and then pick a number, which is the mana value that you're going to master. And then, you stock your deck with a lot of that mana value or something like that.
I kind of like picking a number. That kind of sounds fun. It's a little funny that it's a tongues and words, and then we're going right into numbers.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not too dissident.
I guess words would also be card type. What other characteristics on a card?
You could choose odd or even. You can choose power and toughness, color.
Tongues could also be like, if a real or mythological god was a god of tongues, I'd imagine they could speak to any nation on Earth, right? Which might represent like creature types or something like that.
But then that begs the question: is why is that god teaming up with a dragon, lizard, snake god?
Yeah.
Or dragon, lizard, snake priest who clearly loves dragon, lizards, and snakes.
I guess if it's something that you can always enable for yourself, you're going to be aligned on some creature type. And then if your opponents are aligned on their creature type, then you can also take advantage of that. Something like that. That's why. I don't know if that's the right idea, but that's how I would put that together. God of tongues.
And tongues, I didn't expect tongues to be such a tricky thing to try and capture. It could also, if you think of tongues as like final word and like someone who masters tongues might be able to disrupt somebody's spell, we could make them kind of like a countery style. And that would kind of maybe lean into the mystic snake is a classic snake. But I don't know if having a counter spell in the command zone is particularly fun.
So from the Zaket side, we're going to want to dump dragons in our graveyard, dump lizards and whatever in our graveyard. Maybe what we should be doing is like you have mastery over these three types separately. That is what you're speaking, your tongues that you're speaking to. You're speaking to 3 different kinds of creatures. Formerly 4 different kinds of creatures, but Viashino got folded in. So maybe, Asapis is also a master of these 3 creature types in some way.
Yeah, I like that idea. Asapis could give you a different benefit for each creature type. So like 3 different lines when a dragon enters the battlefield, when a lizard enters the battlefield, when a snake enters the battlefield, and you get different bonuses for each of them. If all 3 happen, maybe something big, crazy, cool happens.
Yeah. If
you had a dragon, lizard, and snake enter the battlefield under your control this turn, kind of a cool line of text.
Yeah.
Maybe that's. I think that's a pretty good place to.
Yeah, that's a good
end up.
I think we're in a good spot. Like, I guess even if Asapis could like copy aspects of those creatures, like it has the body of a dragon and the speed of a lizard and the cunning of a snake or something like that.
Yeah, what if it gained different abilities? So like a snake would draw a card. So the classic snake thing is when deals combat damage to a player. I'm thinking back to the You Make the Pack that we did with Lorwyn, and Red Bay had these little symbols that went with each one. And so you could
if you control this, if you control that,
Yeah, maybe control is a better space, but like you could have the little symbol attached to each one. So if a dragon enters the if you control a dragon, it gets the corresponding symbol, or something like that. What would be a lizard ability? What makes a lizard unique from a dragon and a snake? If a snake is deal combat damage, draw a card, that's like classic blue snake. and a dragon is, I think of fire breathing. Pay a red, get +1/+0. What's her lizard ability?
There's like the root wallas are all lizards.
Should it have madness?
Madness. That's interesting. Snakes you control have madness or whatever. That does give it a little bit of a twist. If we try to give madness and also have some sort of discard. I don't know.
You know, didn't Viashinu also do discarding stuff?
Viashino often return themselves to hand.
Oh, that was it.
After combat. Like you play them and then they bounce themselves after they're done. Or at least the classic ones.
Right.
I'm not against something with madness, because then you have some sort of thing that discards, and then you also give things madness. We don't totally need madness, though, because we're already getting our creatures back from the graveyard, so we don't need two different ways to discard to cast. I guess I could give something else madness, so then I want to have, like, all of my discard outlets are, like, live for multiple reasons. I don't know.
Maybe that's dragging us in too many directions, though.
Okay.
I kind of think I like the idea of maybe, like, caring about controlling one of each. I think that maybe is the most interesting hook we've touched on. I don't know what your feelings are.
Yeah. So we just have 3 lines on here. If you control a dragon, this has blah, blah, blah. If you control a snake, this has blah, blah, blah. If you control a lizard, this has blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I have so many Scryfall searches in my browser history now. Oh, this is a new Assassin's Creed god.
I didn't know there was a god in Assassin's Creed.
That's like, well, I don't know how much to spoil about Assassin's Creed in the podcast. That's kind of what the meta story in Assassin's Creed is about. How many things do you know about Assassin's Creed?
Last week, while I was sick, I listened to a podcast about the Assassin's Creed movie. Oh. The other thing I know is I played the first level of the second one, and what I would do is I'd run around and I'd beat people up and then I'd throw them in the river. And that's my experience with Assassin's Creed.
Love to throw people in a river. Me and my roommates had what we call parking violations in Grand Theft Auto. If we saw like the AI parked a car, everything's on hold. We get that car, we drive it in the ocean. They park the car wrong, no tolerance. Get out of here. All right. Yeah, so we have 3 lines here. We're giving 3 abilities that if you control these different things.
Still stuck on Lizard. I feel like Lizard maybe should have some sort of discard element to help us tie in.
Yeah. I guess the snake claws could be when you deal combat damage to a player, draw 2 cards, then discard a card.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Like what's that equipment?
Mask of Memory.
Yeah.
The thing I'm stuck on is lizards. Lizards are just...
I think the lizard thing should be the juiciest one. I think we could probably do something else with this dragon one to also make it a little juicy. I'm not fire breathing in Commander, basically, ever. I mean, dragon could just give Esopus flying, I guess. We'll work on dragon later. We got to nail lizard.
We could have the lizard one deal direct damage. I feel like lizards actually do that.
There's a lizard that I've seen, coincidentally a lizard. It's not lizard typo, but Ketis, which is one of the partner little familiars. So Ketis, Emberclaw Familiar, whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, deals that much damage to each other opponent.
Ooh.
One of the reasons that I kind of like that, we might be tight on rule space, but if you have that text on that card and you also control a snake, now you're going to draw 1,000,000 cards because you're going to hit that one opponent and then hit the other 2 opponents. And then like those abilities like combine together.
I really like that.
I guess, is that blue? Or we're thinking, is it snake? We're not thinking just blue snake.
Correct. Because we could just have Esopus deal 1 damage. So, like, whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, it deals 1 damage to each other opponent. I think that needs to say combat damage, probably.
Yeah, the first one might need to be combat damage.
Or else it goes infinite with itself, which is good.
Yeah, that'll get lizards played in Commander finally.
For sure. All right. You don't like fire breathing on the dragon. You want something a little juicier.
Yeah, I guess it's also maybe if we want to just do like a keyword or something, that could also be a way to trim rules text space, you know?
Give the
like
old
we
flying.
Get a menace or flying or whatever else.
Flying and trample.
Sure.
Give it the old
We're
flample.
going to have a flying and trample creature later in this episode, so I'm not in a rush to put trample on this. But
Oh, man. All right. Maybe we can, well, I was going to say we can buff its power, but you're also looking at 2 lines if we do that. But like we could buff its power so it's maybe below ferocious, and then it gets buffed to over ferocious if you have a dragon.
So you want this to be a little guy.
Oh, I guess that would make him a little guy. If we want him to be like 6 mana, he's got to be a big guy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't worry about it then. Don't listen to me.
A portion of these are going to be true, is what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for like, this card is bad until you have all 3. So if you have any other snake out there, you can at least get your cards flowing. You can at least find other stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think there's enough space in a text box for this stuff.
It's a little tight.
Especially because we got nothing else going on.
But it's permissible, I would say. I could do a re-render to check again.
You're smart. You had MSE open already.
MTG.design.
Oh.
I don't want to boot up the virtual machine just for this.
Oh, yeah. You got you're rocking the Mac.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It is a little tight.
I think these are all, instead of gains, they're all has rather than gains. Angelic Gift. Enchanted creature has flying.
Yeah, I think the clunkiest part is that middle thing, but I don't think there's a way to make that shorter.
I guess it could be, if you control a lizard, Asipus has, when this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to each opponent. So it doesn't have to connect. That gets the rules text down by 4 words or something, but
shout out to Skitter Lizard.
yeah, that actually, there are some lizards that do that, so we're maybe in a good spot there.
There's that deck, the Calamity deck, where you attack with a 1/1 and you get to deal 1 damage, and there was a lizard that had that same ability that you played in the deck.
I don't know what a Calamity... Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, the enchantment, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. And
Cool.
then casting cost, power, and toughness, we would take a rough stab at it and then just plan to adjust it later. Do you think Asipus is more of a power heavy or more of a toughness heavy character concept?
I went power heavy. I'm gonna pitch a 6 mana 7/5 here.
Yeah.
I just feel like you want those numbers to look a little juicy because the abilities might seem a little underwhelming at first.
I guess if you put this in the graveyard and then reanimate it and then attack with haste, then you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I'm happy with this. You're down? You're happy?
Love it.
All right. Asipus, God of Tongues. 4 blue-red for a legendary creature god. If you control a dragon, it gains, or it has flying. If you control a lizard, it has, whenever this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to each opponent. If you control a snake, it has, when this creature deals damage to a player, draw a card.
Very cool, yeah. This really wants us to play those creature types and those creature types only, which is kind of nice. With partner commanders, you want to really lock people into a deck theme, I think.
Mm-hmm. You kind of have a sick turn 5 if you play your Planeswalker and then ramp 2 mana, play this on turn 6.
Yeah, the minus actually gets pretty fun too, because if your opponents haven't actually stopped you and you have Zaket and Asipus laying around, then you play some looting card, you dump a dragon and a snake into your graveyard, you activate Zaket, bring both those back, give Asipus 2 new abilities.
Mm-hmm.
That seems pretty sweet.
Cool. All right, what was your card choice, Tim?
Yeah.
You hinted a little earlier, maybe some flying and trample's going to be involved.
Yeah, but I think it's somewhat likely. The card I want to go with is Cryptrat's card, which was kind of a cross-plane card. It's got cards apart from Lore and apart from Kamigawa. The white card that we're starting off with is Thoughtweft Council, which is white for a 2/3, 2 mana 2/3. Partners with Verse of the Unspeakable. And then it has Battalion. Whenever you attack with 3 or more creatures, you may return a creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard to its owner's hand. When you do, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
You play your 2-mana creature here. You have maybe assembled a board. You attack with 3 or more creatures, including this one. So you attack with 2 other creatures. And then you return a creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard to its owner's hand. And then you bounce something either back from your graveyard, kind of angel style, or you can bounce something back from your board. And when you do, everything gains indestructible. So ideally, you attack with 3 things. You return a creature card from your graveyard and give your board indestructible as you're attacking. That's pretty sick. Yeah. But in the absence of a creature in your graveyard, for whatever reason, you can still just bounce something off your board. Maybe get another ETB trigger or something like that. This has all the vibes of a commander that I would play.
Oh, maybe we're going to be joining forces then, because the other half, the Unspeakable, we got to get a little background on that. Because I think you may be bouncing creatures to your hand happily if we go by some of the older cards. Most recently, we had in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, we had a saga talking about the Unspeakable, which, does usual blue stuff, minus power, drawing some cards. And then when you, on step 3, it's one of those ones that like exiles and returns flipped as Vision of the Unspeakable, which is a 0/0 flying trample creature that gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand. This was maybe a mixture of like wanting to sort of respect the card drawing capabilities of the friend side of the card. It could potentially draw 4 cards. But also maybe sort of the sweep stuff that happened in Kamigawa. Sweep was this like weird mechanic where you had the option of sweeping up a bunch of your lands into your hand and then getting bigger. So Unspeakable here, flying trample, and then like gets bigger with cards in hand. The other Unspeakable is the original one from Kamigawa block. Well, the creature itself is actually not as important as the other 3 cards that went with the Unspeakable. Do you know these cards? You ever seen these cards get cast?
Yeah. Peer into the something. They're like a 1-mana card, a 2-mana card, and a 3-mana card. And I only ever remember the 1-mana card was a cantrip that saw like fringe modern play for a little bit for some godforsaken reason.
Yeah, so Reach Through Mist is a 1-mana instant arcane draw card. It's just a cantrip with arcane. And if you don't know what arcane is, you probably won't need to know. The second part, 2 mana, look at the top 5, reveal an instant or sorcery, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom. And the third one, also an instant, sift through sands, draw 2 cards, then discard a card, and then the money text. If you've cast a spell named Peer Through Depths and a spell named Reach Through Mist this turn, you may search your library for a card named The Unspeakable and put it onto the battlefield. So if you can have enough of these, little spell cards, you can sort of dig through all the secrets necessary to find out about this like forbidden gigantic spirit, which is a 9-mana flying trample 6/7. That when it hits a player, returns an arcane card from your graveyard to your hand. So, again, with a little more card draw, blue nonsense that I know that you're absolutely completely fond of all the time, right? This is the deck that you play all the time, just mono blue card draw.
It's funny because what we're combining is the like weird tiny white creature that's kind of just like a workman-like little creature that's I'm here and I'm gonna get the job done with the over the top that's the kind of card that I like when I'm playing Commander, with the over the top crazy goofy engine card that I feel like Tim likes when he's playing Commander.
Yeah, and that's why I selected this card, is that I feel like it's like a nice combination of the two of us. I think that the thing that I like the most in Commander is something that requires like a good amount of deck building to pull off, but can actually go pretty big if you are doing that deck building and you are, pick your spot to kind of unleash your mayhem on your opponents. A card that I feel like exists halfway between those two cards that I feel like is a starting point. We're reading a lot of cards in a row. I'm sorry about that, but the card for me that I've played a lot in Commander is a Selesnya card, actually. It doesn't have blue, but it's called Torsten, Founder of Benalia. And this is a 7-mana human. It's a 7/7, a crazy giant human. I don't know if they're actually giant, but when it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 7, and then you get any lands and creatures from that. So if you have a deck of all lands and creatures, when Torsten enters the battlefield, you draw 7 cards. That's the kind of juice that I like in Commander, right? So, what can I do now that I don't have to care about card draw? I still have to care about everything else in the game, but my Commander has that completely locked down because of my unusual deck composition.
So here's what my first thought is. You can tell me if this is
Yeah.
in line with where
Yeah.
your headspace is.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm missing here is a third zone. But if you can return creatures from 3 different areas, there's some sort of discount or special bonus you get for the verse. So, and that being return a creature from your battlefield, return a creature from your graveyard, and maybe return a creature from the opponent's battlefield to their hand. If you can do all of that in a turn, that's your like sifting, peering, reaching kind of thing.
Okay.
And so that's where my first headspace, though I'm not sure what does the deck building constraint look like when you're doing that.
Well, one of the things with the Thoughtweb Council is that you kind of need a decent number of creature cards, not just tokens. You could use some tokens if you want to, if they're advantageous, for just the council side. But you kind of want to have a good number of creature cards, because the most value-driven thing that this can do is basically raise dead. Take a creature from your graveyard, put it in your hand. If we're trying to pursue your quest here, we want a lot of mana wars. We want a lot of like creatures that enter the battlefield and bounce something.
So do you like that hook? Is that a hook you want to explore more, or you want to try and find some different hooks here that we can latch on to? Do we?
I'm not unhappy with that. I guess the thing I don't want to fully get to is like full blink deck.
Yep.
I don't want to just be like flickering things. Like I'm not quite as interested in doing that.
I'm always a sucker for leaves the zone triggers as well. So cards that care about cards leaving your graveyard, or cards that care about cards leaving the battlefield.
Yeah.
Is something I'm always a sucker for, which leans into some of what the Thoughtweb Council is doing.
If 3 or more cards left the battlefield this turn, this is 6 cheaper to cast or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
That, left the battlefield there, it probably leans like into like board wipes and things. So you swing, you make your board indestructible, you board wipe, kill all your opponent's stuff, then get a giant Verse of the Unspeakable. So maybe that's a little bit too easy.
That's not the worst. I mean, if you're board wiping, you did set something up, because you kind of are attacking with a board of creatures. You're thought wefting, you got a couple buddies on the ground. You attack, you return something, and then your creatures get indestructible. And then you get some sort of board wipe or something after that. And then now you also have the gigantic Unspeakable flying in over to give you support.
So here's the other thing I'm thinking about. If I was playing the Thoughtweb Council, what I would want to do is like I would want to play around with maybe even skipping the battlefield. Like my first thought is maybe play like cyclers. So I cycle the card, I attack with my Thoughtweb Council, trigger Battalion, and then bring a cycler back, and then I can play out my cyclers. But like try and find homes for all these like just like generic 4/4 cycler cards.
Yeah.
So that could be another thing of like, if we think of a way to make the Verse of the Unspeakable say, yeah, you're playing all the goofy cyclers, like let's go. That could be another idea. And that also solves your card draw problem, like you're looking like you're talking about, because you're repeatedly cycling these cards. It keeps us away from just like blink forever, because that's like the one thing that Thoughtweb Council like encourages is just like play a bunch of ETBs and then re-ETB. And then that gets a little boring. Unspeakable probably is a blue card, so like blue-white play ETB cards has been a deck forever. So that might be fun too, of like, oh, if I'm cycling, that's a weird way for me to use this return creatures from my graveyard. And then maybe the Verse of the Unspeakable can encourage that in some way as well.
Because, leaving the battlefield does put you back in the Brago blink zone, which is maybe not where we're trying to head. Maybe Unspeakable can help keep moving your battlefield forward. Okay, so I returned a card or two from my graveyard to my hand. And now the Unspeakable, when it attacks or when it enters or something like that, I redeploy those.
The unspeakable could also synergize with Thothweft. Like the unspeakable could be the thing that the Thothweft wants to keep moving around. So like if you imagine the council and the unspeakable are in the command zone, you play the council, you build up your board, you play the unspeakable, and then you bounce it to your hand, and then you can discard the unspeakable from your hand for an effect, or play it back on the battlefield, and maybe you want to keep moving the unspeakable around to different zones, and that's where your engine comes into play.
Yeah, yeah.
Which could be weird, especially if the unspeakable is like an 8-mana creature that like is a pain in the butt to get out, and then you instantly want to bounce it. That's a little strange of a play pattern.
So we kind of need like the Thoughtweft to help you cast the unspeakable in some way.
Mm-hmm.
It can start at 8 mana or whatever to like feel gigantic like the old card. I think the flavor here is the Thoughtweft is powerful enough, unlike normal humans or moonfolk or whatever. The Thoughtweft, the power of all the Kithkin minds linked together, that's enough to actually have the brain power necessary to handle communicating with the unspeakable, unlike everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's like, I don't know, the creatures on the battlefield make it easier to cast, or something about the Thoughtweft Council specifically is making it easier to cast.
Yeah. You know, the blue version I can think of is number of creatures that were returned to your hand this turn.
Yeah.
But it seems also kind of difficult to bounce enough creatures to maybe be relevant. Council can bounce one. And like I said, we also want to steer away from just having another kind of flicker deck.
Yeah. All right. I think this is getting close. Like, I can return any number of creatures that dealt combat damage this turn.
Ooh. Yeah, there you go.
So if I have something like, when, as an additional cost to cast this, you can return any number of creatures to your hand. This costs 1 less for each creature card returned to your hand this turn. So either the things that you picked up right then, or stuff that you picked up earlier in the turn, such as with the Thoughtweft's ability.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, like, these are all the Kithkin or all your soldiers joining the choir to summon the unspeakable.
If we want to kind of zone in on the council as somehow unique in communicating with it, we could also have it exile a bunch of things underneath of it when it enters the battlefield, and then once it leaves the battlefield, you get those things back, or something happens based on the number of things you exiled. And the Thoughtweft Council kind of works there in that it can bounce it to your hand, so it can unleash whatever the verse is building up.
Okay, yeah.
For
so
you.
I think something like that is nice, where I want to sort of like everybody goes to join the unspeakable.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the unspeakable arrives, it's like, I don't know, like a battleship or like an aircraft carrier, basically. Like, it's coming in, but it's got a bunch of other guys like stored in with it to help you redeploy later.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fun to have this kind of push-pull of like, all right, I got a bunch of stuff on the battlefield. Now I just have the unspeakable. Now the unspeakable's gone and I got a bunch of stuff on the battlefield again. Like, is that kind of mixture of, different modes? Like, is that an appealing thing to do?
I think it caters to the Johnny in a lot of Commander players of like, how do I deal with building a deck that's go wide and go tall at the same time? Yeah, there's a legend from Baldur's Gate that like exiles your entire board and makes 1/1s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
When he leaves, everybody comes back.
It's the placeholder character for the player character in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2. I actually have it in my Chaos Commander Sealed deck right now, so...
I forget his name because I tried for so long to build a deck that wasn't just Blink stuff with him, and I could never get it to just not be Blink stuff.
Yeah. Abdel Adrian, Gorion's Ward, which enters the battlefield, gobbles up as many permanents as you want until it leaves, and then however many you gobble up, you also get that many soldiers.
This card, though, was pretty popular and had a little bit of that, like, you get a board, but he stayed go wide the entire time. What the Unspeakable might do is like, hey, we're going wide, now we're going tall. Now we're going wide, now we're going tall. And that's, you're going back and forth between these two modes.
Yeah, yeah.
And the Unspeakable could go tall based on how wide you went, Oh, if you went really wide when the Unspeakable entered, now he's really big.
Yeah, maybe what I'm trying to do is something like have it be expensive. The only way you're reasonably going to cast this is by doing the first half, like returning a bunch of stuff to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it hits or when it leaves the battlefield or something like that, then you just deploy whatever you want. Like you just absolutely dump.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We might be a little high on rules text right now, but that play pattern actually feels big enough for me.
Yeah. So are you thinking like when you return it to your hand, you get a bunch of mana, or you get some sort of trigger that lets you deploy your creatures that you returned?
It's more of that second thing. More of like,
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm trying to do is evoke something huge, which is like a show and tell kind of thing.
Ooh, there you go.
Like I get to dump a lot of stuff. I mean, I guess show and tell's not a great example because that's like one card. It should be sort of a variety of cards.
Maybe what I'm thinking is like, its power and toughness could be equal to the number of cards in your hand, and then when it leaves the battlefield or deals damage, like you're saying, you get to deploy creatures with power and toughness less than or equal to the number. So like, you can deploy a bunch of 2/2s. You can deploy a 6/5 and a 5/5. Whatever you want to do.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, one thing I just realized about our last card is that we didn't actually put the partner with text on it.
Oh, yeah.
I started to write up this text and I realized we've been cheating. That's exciting to know. We're going to fix it for this one. Yeah. We're not going to go back on that other.
But yeah, right. if you caught that, 10 bonus points to you.
Yeah. So that actually lowers the amount of space we have to work with. So our plan, we're gonna run straight into the enemy this time. Something like that. We need to get this text like really short. All right, when this creature leaves the battlefield, you may put any number of creatures with, I'm going to start with power 2 or less.
Okay.
From your hand onto the battlefield.
That is not very blue, though.
Yeah, doing the cheaty things is much more blue, but doing just a kind of fair thing is not very blue. I guess something like a cheaty blue sounding thing might be like spells you cast cost 2 less. When this leaves the battlefield, spells you cast cost 2 less until the end of turn or whatever.
Oh, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I like that.
All right. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each card put into your hand this turn, and then when this card leaves the battlefield, spells you cast cost 2 less to cast until end of turn.
Is this card just lend itself too much to I draw a bunch of cards and this is cheap? Is that a problem?
It has like standalone appeal, for better or worse. Let's pencil in a cost here. Let's say this is the same as original Unspeakable, 6 blue, blue, blue. So if I just draw 2 extra cards, I can play this for 3 blue mana. That's actually kind of easy now that I think about it.
My thought being like we could say cost 2 less to cast for each card put into your hand this turn from a different zone. Takes up a little bit more space. But it would mean that like drawing more cards doesn't keep reducing the cost.
Yeah, I've seen that in Hearthstone, but that's a little hard to word succinctly in Magic.
From anywhere other than your library.
Nthwhere. I don't know how I'd type out that.
I hope you don't want flying and trample on this card. It's looking... You might be... you can squeeze it on there.
Let me see how disgusted I am when I render this. Go back to the drawing board if I throw up in my mouth.
But this, I'm not disgusted by this. I would read this card.
When this creature leaves the battlefield, spells you cast. One kind of tricky thing about that text is that it's good if it happens on your turn, but part of the play pattern when I was kind of thinking about this is like, okay, I hit with some creatures, I get some value, I play the Unspeakable, then my opponent like board wipes or removes it. The original show and tell version, oh, you destroyed my Unspeakable, guess what? I get to redeploy all my babies.
We can give them flash. When this creature leaves the battlefield,
to cast and can be cast as though they have flash.
Yeah, I think that's literally text on a card.
Spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, Oh man, that text is so cumbersome to read, and maybe cast as though they had flash.
I maybe it's a separate sentence, and you may cast spells as though they had flash this turn.
Yeah.
Ugh. Is this what the Beacon members were going through when they were making cards? Because they all remembered the reminder text, and they were they going through the same thing of like, oh, this is a pain in the butt to fit rules text on this card.
I'm feeling like this is going to be hard to resolve. This is hard to fix. Because without the cheaty version, I play this, I'm kind of tapped out or close to tapped out. And then my thing gets removed. I have 7 Kithkin in my hand, but I can't actually deploy them.
So you're saying we're back to the drawing board?
We have to erase a portion of the drawing board.
I think we keep this creature costs 2 less to cast for each card put into your hand from anywhere other than your library. Do you have that text? Still like that text.
Maybe we don't need to like do this costs 2 less to cast for each of these things that you did, but just this costs a chunk less if you did it once.
So you're saying this costs 2 less if you returned a creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah. I guess how hard is that to do?
Not very hard.
If you have Thoughtwef, it's not very hard. If you don't have Thoughtwef, how hard is it?
Well, you can just cast a Manowar and then bounce your own thing.
Yeah, so I paid 3 mana to get a 2 mana discount, so I haven't cheated.
Mm-hmm.
Can I do it for less than like 2 mana?
Well, you can unsummon.
I guess I can cast a unsummon. Yeah. But even then, I've spent 2 mana on the creature, 1 mana on the unsummon. What I'm trying to say is I kind of want this discount to be like kind of big, because I think it's not that easy to do while also saving mana.
Yeah. The only other thing I can think of is like an enchantment that maybe would return it to your hand, but then you've spent mana into the enchantment. Yeah. So I guess you're right.
I want this discount to be like 4 or higher.
You're getting your mana back.
Let's start with 6 and then I'll tune it down if I need to.
Oh my god.
Bro, this is Commander. We gotta go big.
I disagree. I like this 2 mana 2/3. I don't think it needs a partner.
First, the Unspeakable is just a 1 mana sorcery draw card. That's all we needed back in my day. I'm only playing blue with this commander because I need the gold card from Odyssey. Spell costs 6 less to cast if you return a creature card to your hand this turn. So that's like an unusual thing. It's not a ton of text. And then, so its other trigger doesn't actually have to be that powerful because we are already getting a cheap big flyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you want it to be maybe a combat damage trigger?
I think that keeps in theme with the Thoughtwef Council, yeah.
Mm-hmm. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, what should it do? Maybe just draw a bunch of cards?
I had just like a weird reaction of like, oh, drawing the card, that's too easy. Am I making it too hard on myself? Not doing the simple thing.
Well, our last guy. Oh no, our last guy didn't draw. He does draw cards. Our last guy
does draw cards when he deals.
We can't have 2 blue cards that draw cards. I can't believe we made 2 blue cards too.
Is there a blue combat buff that you can give your team? The Unspeakable's here.
You can give everything flying.
Or I guess the Unspeakable is scary, so it's going to like give creatures your opponents control minus power or something.
That could work.
Because that like would tie into the saga pretty well.
Maybe it has a passive of just like when things attack you, they get a minus now.
Oh, so that you feel free to swing out?
Yeah, you're just going to town now because the Unspeakable is scaring everybody away from you. Whenever a creature attacks you, gets -2/-0 until end of turn or something.
Yeah.
We give it courtesy whenever a player attacks a player other than you. Their creature gets a buff.
Creatures attacking you get -2/-0. Feels pretty short. We've had like
there you go.
Some like close cards, like a Dampening Pulse creatures your opponents control get -1/-0, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nice if it's not a trigger, because that's going to be less text, maybe a little easier to grok. I'm not seeing any enchantments that give -2 power, so maybe, or any permanents giving -2 power, so maybe giving -2 power on a permanent is kind of cool.
I'm sure that players will be thinking that when they read this card, they'll be like, "Ooh, giving -2 power on a permanent. I've never seen that before." It's just like one of those like very specific designer brain things that
all right.
we're like, "Oh, I've not
Yeah.
seen this before." It's like most players are not even thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, it's more of a check of like, have we gotten to something kind of new? Is
Yeah,
why I word it that way.
I agree. I like that line of text though a lot. Creatures attacking you just get this.
The unspeakable is just so crazy that it's frightening. Behold the Unspeakable, the saga gave creatures -2/-0 until end of turn. So we're like calling back that saga that I think is many people's closer connection point to the Unspeakable. It's an ongoing effect, which I could think fits into the verse of the Unspeakable kind of name that we've got here. The verse also, dispels less to cast if you returned a creature, if you did this thing that these Kithkin are doing. Yeah, so maybe I'll give it a final read. 6 blue, blue, blue. The original cost of the Unspeakable partner with Thoughtweft Council. Flying and trample. This spell costs 6 less to cast if you returned a creature card to your hand this turn. And then creatures attacking you get -2/-0. It's a 6/7.
Nice. Seems good.
I feel like I can still be an attacking deck and play this Unspeakable because I have a way with deck building or by using the other commander to get this thing out much earlier than normal. I'm encouraged to swing out because I'm not going to take a huge crackback because I've got the Unspeakable in play. Yeah, all that feels pretty good to me.
I'm trying to just think if I can get this out on turn 3 using the Thought Weft in some way, but you got to get that battalion trigger. I don't know how you could get that battalion trigger.
I guess if you play a 1-drop, then the Seal of Unsummoning. That's how you do it.
Perfect.
It takes a long time to design Magic cards. You ever think about that?
No, I don't think about it until these episodes, and then I think, oh, poor Tim is gonna have to churn through and to edit this down. Like, good luck, have fun, buddy.
And then I was like, well, Commander's a little more juicy, so let's just aim for 2 cards. Let's do 2 cards in one episode, and that'll be a low enough scope. And we're still a solid hour and a half plus of
we should have shot for 1.5 cards. We should have done 1 card and then just ended the episode in the middle of the second.
I mean, that's all in fun. We're here to make cool episodes that hopefully people find fun to listen to. In order to feed a future episode, we'd like you to submit cards for our July design challenge. Maybe I'll read the challenge. You can read the bonus points.
All right.
The July design challenge is 777 Jackpot. Design a fixing card using at least one mechanic that was first printed or previewed in 2024.
Bonus points from Juliet are Jewel Lie. Give it a heist flair or flavor. It's Jewel like the gem. And then Platty said, July the 4th be with you. Put the number 4 in the cost or rules text of the card.
Have you already done a card for this? Are you still in the plotting stages for this card?
No, between You Make the Pack and Design League, I've been pretty lax on the design challenges. Period. I hopped on this episode because I felt so bad about not submitting a card. I'm like, well, if I'm on the follow-up episode, maybe it justifies it a little bit.
Yeah. There you go. You've designed a card this month for the episodes, so you're good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just for episodes. You've been, let's make sure to shout out those things going on. You Make the Pack. That's our sort of like design one card at a time with the community. People are kind of voting. We're in a turbo You Make the Pack right now, run by Cord, which has, I think will basically be done by the time this episode's
It'll be over by next Wednesday for sure.
Yeah. So check out the aftermath for that. It seemed to be some sort of like haunted beach. This is what this set is about.
Yeah, it's like it started off as the beach episode and then quickly became creepy beach vacation.
Yeah, instead of cabin in the woods, it's bungalow at the beach.
There you go. You backed yourself into a corner with that one. I wasn't sure if you were going to be able to get out.
I pulled it out.
You managed well, yeah.
We've also got Design League, which is not open entry right now. We're in our tournament instead. You actually made it into the second round, which is very exciting.
I know, huge relief.
Yeah, we got the top 6, so we're going to do top 6. We got a challenge about the courtesy mechanic, this kind of unusual political mechanic. And then we'll have a top 4, and then a top 2, and then a winner. Yeah, so make sure to be following that. I'm sure we'll have episodes about it too.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one last shout out before we get out of here. We posted the original ep for this, like the partner with ep, a week or 2 ago. And then Cord actually jumped in and designed a partner for all the submissions, all dozen submissions, threw them in the Discord. I tried to not look at those for this episode. I tried to get some fresh takes in there. But if you want to see some more partner with things, jump in there, or jump in there to tell us how you would have done the unspeakable. I think the unspeakable I picked that one to be kind of a puzzle, kind of a hard thing to crack. So I'm interested where other people go with that too. All right, that's our podcast for the week. Thanks for coming on, Mono White Border, and giving all your ideas. Being
Always.
the like Mono White on the board, advocate to my do a bunch of weird big things, commander instincts.
Yeah, I think we got somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah. All right. Anything you want to tell people about? Any movie rec this time?
Yeah. So my movie rec, I just started a new book actually called The Double. But if you don't have time to read the book, there was a movie adaptation made by Denis Villeneuve, who directed the Dune movies, called Enemy. Yeah, it's a movie about someone who finds his doppelganger and the obsession that comes from it. So kind of a partnery movie, if you will.
There you go. All right.
That's it.
Enemy. 2013. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's a Jake Gyllenhaal movie. It's
okay.
It's weird. If you're scared of spiders, you'll have to close your eyes at a couple parts. But the spiders aren't a big part of the movie.
Okay. All right, cool. If you need to reach out to us, the Discord's the way to do that. I'm Tim F. Riley there, your Mono White Border on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to thank everyone for listening.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, thank you too.